Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Golden Ticket Show. Today we have the Degenerate Deep Dive with my man Jordan from Fantasy Deep Dive. Jordan, how we doing today?
Good. Excited for some Thanksgiving football, some food. We're just kind of talking about how we work today, and I'm just glad that I don't have to work for the next 4 days. So ready to roll.
There we go. We love that. Yeah, we got there's nothing but football on this whole weekend. You got college football games on Friday. We got the Black Friday game Friday. We got rivalry week this week for Saturday, and we have a bunch of really good matchups. I mean, some of these matchups look great, like rivalries and divisional matchups that have huge implications this week. So we're gonna go ahead. I know Jordan, you usually get an article out beginning of the week to get to get everyone ready for the weekend, and I usually try to put out a Thursday night parlay. So it's great we got to do this together, and since there's so many games, we can do a full breakdown on the best stuff that we can do for Thursday. So let's obviously start with the big one, the early game, Detroit versus Green Bay. The spread's at 7.5. I feel it. How do you feel about this matchup? Because I feel like Green Bay's that team that just when you think they're gonna get blown out by 20, they always keep it close.
Well, and that's exactly it. And I kind of thought like last week, and it sucks because I picked the Chargers as my survivor pool pick, and because the Chargers coming off that heartbreaking loss and then going up against Green Bay, I should have thought twice because Green Bay's at home and they seem to play just a little bit better at home. I think you're exactly right. We watched Justin Fields come back after being off for 4 or 5 weeks, and he was tearing the secondary up. He's obviously, I think, a better talent than Jordan Love, but the Packers are no slouch, and the Lions' defense isn't as good as I think everybody thought they were. So I do like this. I like the over in this game, and I like it to be close. So if I was to bet on either side of it, I think I'm going the over, and then I think the Packers cover the spread here.
Yeah, see, I think Detroit is just that team this year that, the big thing last year was that their defense was just horrendous. Like, it was such a great offense, but their defense was just so open that it made everything so much harder. And I think we're slowly seeing them develop that defense because in the running game, when you have that front seven, you really can't get past that. I mean, we saw it on that fourth down drive or on that last drive in the fourth quarter. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson just got through with ease. Everyone on that defensive line is just breaks through fast. Their secondary has just been very iffy. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, I was so scared to bet that game because of that, because Goff has not had the best first halves to start the year. But I think something that I think you really kind of got to look at, and I haven't seen much on it, so I'm curious. I'm actually looking up. I have yet to find like any props on this game. I don't know if you've seen any, but I can't seem to find many props. But I mean, I'm looking at a potentially something with Gibbs and Montgomery running because we'll leave this kind of into your like some fantasy guys you like for daily for this matchup. But I mean, we saw it last week. This defense on the running game for Green Bay is just very open, and we saw the Chargers offense kind of just get through. Is that something you're looking at as like Gibbs and Montgomery this week?
Yeah, I actually thought a way to get a little bit different this week is to go with Gibbs and Montgomery in the same lineups. Um, the Packers play the pass a little bit better, and I mean, I think Jared Goff is price. Like I really like Dak Prescott, and we'll get to that, but Jared Goff's price and just what they do with the running game, I do really think that I do really think that he's not going to be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. And I think just a way to get different, it's hard to choose between Montgomery and Gibbs because they're literally, I mean, Montgomery got 12 carries, 2 targets last week. Jahmyr Gibbs got 8 carries, 6 targets. They're literally 50-50 split. The only difference is that, like PPR wise, Gibbs is going to get you a little bit more just because he's in there for the passing game work. But yeah, as far as like, I mean, either one of them could score a touchdown. Matthew Stafford, or not Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff right now is, what's his 250 yards. I could see him being under, but I could also see him going over. I do like Jordan Love. I do kind of like his passing yards just because the left can be beat through the air. And I think I'm almost positive AJ or Aaron Jones is out this week. I know he was doubtful. Yeah, he's officially ruled out. So AJ Dillon hasn't looked good when he's been in there, and he's also carrying a questionable tag too. So I think they maybe kind of put the ball into Love's hands a little bit more. So I guess if I really had one that I like out of all of them, would be Jordan Love over the 228.5 passing yards.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, even I think he's one of those players. I feel like his line tends to be kind of misvalued because of like how on and off he's been. I remember earlier this year, you could catch him at 200 yards at like almost a minus 110. And as much as, they've been trying to run the ball more and keep the ball, like let him kind of ease into this offense. At any given point, they're going to have to force him to throw. And like we've seen a couple games where it's went great for him and a couple games where it struggled. I mean, even if you want to add it in a parlay, you could get him and Goff just to get 200 each, and that's like around a minus 180. I mean, his 200 yards is a 270. That's a great builder to put in, especially with a team that, if let's say the Lions team does come out strong and they pick apart this defense, they're going to force Jordan Love to throw the ball regardless. So I think that's something really good to look at. But I think with the way their receivers are this week, is there any receivers you're targeting? I know, like, I remember I said on the show last week, Jaden Reed, I thought was going to have a great week, and he played great. So I'm curious to see what you're seeing kind of in the passing game between these two for at least the Packers side of it. We all know Amon-Ra's getting the ball every time.
Right now, and the only thing that kind of worries me about Amon-Ra St. Brown is the same thing that kind of worries me with Goff is if the Packers, if they're getting the running game going, then St. Brown's going to be the one that isn't. I would if it were me, I'm not playing Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and with Goff and Amon-Ra. As far as wide receivers go, Jaden Reed was a full participant today. He was questionable, or he was fine on Monday and had a little chest pain, but then yesterday he ended up sitting out practice because of issue. But today he was a full participant. So I like Dobbs and I like Reed. Christian Watson he's almost got to have a touchdown. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why he's just not getting targets. And honestly, he is getting some targets, but he's just not catching them. 2 weeks ago, he had 7. He only got 2. And then 4 targets last week, caught 2 and caught the touchdown, which kind of saved his day fantasy-wise. But Jaden Reed is probably one of my favorite guys. He got 3 carries last week as well for 6 yards and a touchdown. And he's out there getting, 5-6 targets a game. And then Dobbs is kind of in the same boat. He's getting 5 or 6 targets a game. He just doesn't have the upside, but it looks like they're trying to get Jaden Reed involved everywhere. So I like Reed. And then I was looking like tight end wise. It sounds like Luke Musgrave is going to be out. Yep, he got officially put on the IR today with an admin. And Josiah Deguara is actually out as well. So if you needed to get super, super cheap with a tight end for the Packers, they have Tucker Kraft is going to be the top tight end. He only costs $2,500. I don't think I'm going to get there. I think I'm going to pay up at tight end, but when I kind of wrote an article, it was pretty brutal, the Packers passing game. There was a lot of injuries, but it looks like a lot of them cleared up. So I like Dubs. I like Reed. I'm probably going to stay away from Christian Watson.
So, and I'm curious about something because I know he ruined a couple of my parlays the other day. We really didn't see anything from Sam Laporta last week. Now, do you think it's just the game planning of the way the Bears were playing? If they could just limit it to one threat, because obviously, if St. Brown's doing great and Laporta's doing great, you're in a lot of trouble. So, like, do you think that's a little bit of a case of they were just kind of saying, let's lock him down and worry about St. Brown when we get to him? Or is there kind of cause? His lines kind of went down from, I think last week it was around closer to like 50. It's just hitting 40 on a couple of these books. I'm seeing some like 42, 43, 44. So is that cause for concern to kind of stay away from him this week?
And that's where you start thinking about kind of matchups and stuff. The Packers, if I'm not mistaken, have Jair Alexander still. I don't think, unless he got hurt. For some odd, is he hurt?
He's been in and out. I'm about to check that now.
Yeah,
first thing when you type in his name is injury.
Okay, yeah. So he's injured with a shorter, but he's estimated as limited. He did miss last Sunday's game, but remains to be seen. Yeah, I mean, Alexander's he's a shutdown corner when he's healthy. If he's not going to be in there, I was kind of thinking maybe if he kind of blanketed on St. Brown, maybe it's a Laporta day. But if he's not going to be in there, then I'm not super concerned. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Laporta. I've got him in a couple fantasy leagues, and he's been a little disappointing since the bye week. He's still in there getting 5 targets. I mean, before the bye week, he was getting double-digit targets. The last 2 weeks, he's really only gotten 5. I do think what it is, though, is the Lions were without Gibbs for a few weeks. And so they only had Montgomery, but Montgomery was kind of smashing. And then you flip-flopped it where Montgomery was out for a couple weeks and Gibbs was there. So they kind of had to go to the air a little bit more just because they wanted to get Gibbs some rest. And Craig Reynolds was filling in pretty well, but they don't trust him as much. But they really established the run game. And I really think that, they're running the ball or giving the running backs, almost 30 touches a game. So I really think that's what's kind of hurting Laporta. But you look at DVOA, I mean, Packers are right in the middle of the pack when it comes to covering tight ends. They're 5th according to DraftKings about covering wide receivers. So it's kind of a toss-up. I think he's priced up in DFS anyway. He's priced up quite a bit. There's George Kittle, there's Laporta, and then there's a huge dip all the way down to Jake Ferguson. So yeah, and if his props are trending downwards, probably something that little cause for concern, I think.
Yeah, and see, actually, while I'm looking at that, I actually found a little thing I got to share with you on Jaden Reed, because I don't know if you remember, I was saying last week just how weird some of these lines get for football between books. And if you can see it right down here, FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, they all have Jaden Reed's line around 40, which seems about accurate, right? And then PointsBet has his line at 25. So, and it's at a 115. So if you're a PointsBet better, I would take Jaden Reed on that. I mean, immediately. See, there's a 15-point edge. All my projections are showing him around around 52 to 53 yards. So I think that's like a good straight play. I think that's something I'm definitely tailing for this week is him to get. I think the best one other than that I found is like 37.5 on Caesars. So that's definitely a good line to look at. Like we said, do you think with Gibbs and Montgomery, was this just let's get him back since he's get him back in rhythm, or is this more of just, hey, it's your revenge game, we're gonna let you eat, and what do you think we'll see kind of another split backfield day? You're muted.
I don't know what happened. My stuff keeps disconnecting. Super weird. So anyway, split backfield. I think at the beginning of the season, you really, really saw Montgomery kind of have take the backfield over. And then when he got hurt, Gibbs did such a good job filling in that they were like, all right, we're going to start splitting these touches. I don't think that one or the other gets more touches. I think it's going to be a 50-50 split. You might see one or two more carries depending on the game script. If the Lions are beating them up, I think, you could probably see Montgomery tote the ball a little bit more. If it's a closer game, I think you can see Gibbs maybe get one or two more, touches. But as far as split, I think it's going to be right down the middle. But the thing is both of them they're doing everything they can with those touches. I mean, they're both scoring almost 20 points a game. The biggest thing is if you're looking at goal line work, Montgomery's getting the goal line work. But Gibbs is so explosive that when they're passing the ball, 20 yards out or whatever, he's doing just as good. So I think it stays exactly split. I think it's a 50-50 split. I think they know what they have in both of these guys. And so that's why I'm saying that I think you could get really different and play both of those running backs because they're just a little bit cheaper than some of the other guys and really get different, especially DFS-wise.
Yeah, I think this year it's just like that's just one of those teams where it's other than Amon-Ra, you don't really know what's going to happen. And especially it feels weird having three, Thanksgiving games and all of them are more than a touchdown favorite. Like it just feels like we might be setting ourselves up for another boring game kind of day, but I'm really hoping not. With that being said, let's move on to the next game, which I think will be the most boring of them all, or it could surprise us and be the most exciting. And I know it's your boys going up against the Commanders, but from a non-biased perspective, do you see any chance that the Commanders keep this one close enough to make this an interesting game to watch?
I've already talked about it so many times at work today with a couple. I got a buddy who's an Eagles fan he's always giving me some kind of crap. But we were kind of talking, as much as the Cowboys defense has been really, really good. They had that one really bad game against the Cardinals where they gave up 20 some points and then the offense couldn't get it going. The Cowboys are due for a letdown game. They really are. I mean, I think we've lost against the Eagles. We lost against Arizona and then
San Francisco.
So, I don't know. And just Thanksgiving always just there's always one game that's just completely and totally weird. And always seems to be the Cowboys. I think it was a couple years ago when they played the Raiders and they just got manhandled for the first half. And then they made it a game and then they ended up getting beat. And like I said, I'm a realistic person. I'm a realistic Cowboys fan. And I don't know. Something feels off. I feel like it could be a lot closer. And I think that's why I like Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb is probably my primary stack when I'm going to be my last. I think that Dak goes over. I think he passes for over his prop of, 278 is what I think some of these places were.
Yeah.
So I think he gets 278, no problem. Then I also think that I think CeeDee Lamb goes for over 100. But that's just because I think the game stays close. And it's something about the giving. I don't know what it is. It's just.
So right now his prop on DraftKings is at 279 and at BetMGM it's 279. And the best one we have available on for his over is FanDuel has his at 275.5. So shout out to FanDuel this year because their lines have been so much lower and I feel like a lot sharper than a lot of these other books. So I've just been kind of using them as kind of my baseline this year. But we'll talk about we'll definitely keep our viewers updated with that because we do have make sure you guys stay tuned because we do have a 4-leg parlay to get you guys some money for tonight or for Thursday night. But yeah, I think the other thing you have to look at in this game is, do they trust Brian Robinson on the ground here, or do they just keep going with Sam Howell's arm? I mean, because at this point, if you're trusting Sam Howell's arm in Dallas on a Thursday Thanksgiving game, you can almost guarantee a lock in for an interception there.
Yeah, I do think the Dallas defense is a lock for a pick six, or I think they score a defensive touchdown, and I'm trying to find the prop somewhere, but I'd like to bet that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I wouldn't trust Brian Robinson on the ground just for the simple fact that the Cowboys have been really good against the run. I mean, they've been really good all the way around, but I think that the Commanders are going to have to pass. Like I said, I think it stays closer than what it is, but I think the Cowboys keep a lead the whole time. So, if the Cowboys go up, say 10-0 or 14-3 to start the game, I think that I do like Brian Robinson in the aspect that the guy catches a ton of passes. And right now, Antonio Gibson he's a game time decision right now. He hasn't practiced all week. He missed last Sunday's game. And Robinson was my highest owned running back on the slate last week. And he had 17 rushes for 73 yards, and he got 9 targets, caught 7 of them for 58, scored 20 points, and didn't hit the end zone at all. And like I said, I mean, they got blown out by the Giants, and they were constantly trying to catch it. They were playing catch up. And like I said, the Cowboys are a little bit worse against the pass catching running back. So I do like Brian Robinson here. He's still pretty cheap, but yeah, I think they're going to have to rely on Sam Howell's arm. And like I said, that means the Cowboys defense should have a chance for a few pick sixes. Deron Bland is going to break the record, so I think he's going to be overly aggressive. So that's kind of where I also think that maybe, just maybe, that Washington maybe gets a couple deep bombs, or he's being too aggressive on one, and they hit Terry McLaurin, and Terry McLaurin breaks one, and that's kind of what worries me. Is you start bringing up those record stuff, and people, it's kind of like the same way with Trayvon Diggs when he was going after single season interception record or whatever, and he's just super aggressive, and he get burned a lot, and you'd see it, and you're just like, man, like this guy can't be that good, Then he ends up being pretty okay, but yeah, I do think that I think Sam Howell's going to have to throw quite a bit.
Well, and I was just thinking too, on the opposite side for the Commanders and like really helps us with our Dak Prescott and CD Lamb props, and anyone who's that's a stack that I think I really, really like. But the big worry for me with that is just the fact that at any point it could go 28-0, and then they just say, all right, well, we'll sit you guys, give you guys some rest since it's a Thursday night game, and give you guys an extra 2.5 days of rest before your next game. And then you're out a quarterback and a top wide receiver. But Washington has the worst passing defense. That's not beside like them and the Chargers. I mean, they let Justin Fields throw for 400. Tommy DeVito threw for almost 200 again. Like this team is just not. I want to say they're not built for it, but they're really not. They're built around they let Tommy DeVito throw for 3 touchdowns and 246 yards, and they sacked him 9 times. And that just shows you how, but like, I mean, Darius Slayton has 82 yards. That's something I didn't think I would see this year. With a team that doesn't have Daniel Jones. But that defense is just so awful. I could potentially see Dak hitting 200 in the first half. So that's something I'm definitely looking at. So and we touched up on this on Sunday about Tony Pollard's just kind of drop off this year. Is this one of those games where, I mean, as a Cowboys fan, do you think we start seeing Dowdle a little bit more? We start seeing those RB2s just kind of take over and take that role.
And it's so weird because I hate that, because I hate the fact that Zeke kind of lost his legs and Tony Pollard was the more explosive back, but then every week and like I said, like to your credit, where you're talking about how it could be a 28-0 game, but look at what the Cowboys did to the Giants. They beat them 49-17. Dak threw the ball 3rd time still. I mean, they're putting their foot on the gas pedal and they're not stopping. It doesn't matter what the score is. Last week was probably, since the bye week, last week was the one anomaly where they kind of just took it out of Dak's hands. I mean, he only threw for 189 yards, still had 2 touchdowns. And it was really because the defense that picked 6 and, really kind of kept them off the field. But I mean, yeah, against the Giants, Dak Prescott, 404 yards, and they won 40-70. And then against the Rams, they won 43-20, and Dak threw for 304 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, they're keeping this guy going. I guarantee you, he probably throws for at least 25 times. The Tony Pollard thing is what bugs me most. They give the ball, like, they'll be down inside the 10-yard line. They'll hand the ball off to Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard will get it down to the 4, and then they take 2 shots at the end zone. Are they scoring touchdowns? Yeah, absolutely. But they're not using Tony Pollard to his full potential. And I was high on Tony Pollard last week. They were going up against one of the worst run defenses with Carolina, and they just didn't give the guy the ball. He just, CeeDee Lamb was like, oh, we're going to get him going, putting it out on X, saying we're going to get this guy going. He deserves it. And he put up a decent score. Yeah, absolutely. The touchdown kind of saved his day, but still, I mean, he only rushed the ball 12 times.
Yeah, I took his under. That was a stressful one.
So I mean, yeah, he touched the ball. He had 17 or 16 total touches. He got 5 targets, which, I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were seeing 8 and 7, and he was getting a lot of work, and now it's not that way. Donald's been good. And he's, like I said, he came in last week in garbage time and carried the ball 8 times. And you've got your feature back who's only touching it 12 times, in 3 quarters. It's like, I understand you're trying to run the clock out and all that other stuff, but like, give the guy a chance to get some work in. So I don't know. I just don't think that they're using him to his full potential. And I don't see that changing. Last week was the perfect week to get him rolling, and they just didn't. Yeah, they got him in the end zone. First time that he scored since week 1, but I don't know. I just don't trust them. I don't trust McCarthy to use them the right way. But speaking of Dottle, he is officially questionable. He had a limited practice today. That was his first participation this week. And if he doesn't suit up, then you see Deuce Vaughn maybe come in. But they haven't really used Deuce Vaughn. So if Dowdle is out, I like Pollard a little bit more, but they're still doing end arounds to Kavontae Turpin. They're still using Brandon Cooks in the running game. I mean, I don't trust Tony Pollard.
Well, and see, something I've noticed, just not even with like the Cowboys, but most of these teams this year that don't have a back that's just been the dominant, like we have to put the ball in his hands to win the game kind of situation. Like, it seems like a lot of these teams now are like, yeah, you're our running back 1, wink. And then they we see it in Tennessee just about every week. It's, oh yeah, Derrick Henry's time to shine. Derrick Henry's going to dominate. 10 rushes for 7 yards when Tyjae Spears has every touch. And it's like, hey, you want to get him the yards, you want to get a rookie going, but you have Derrick Henry and you're not using him. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen this week. We'll go over the San Francisco game real quick, and then I don't know if you want to pull up your daily fantasy and kind of give some people, a look at what you're looking at for daily fantasy and your lineups. But I mean, this is another game. It feels like, to me, this spread is a little too low for the fact that Geno Smith is questionable and half his team is hurt. I mean, we saw Kenneth Walker leave the game. We saw Geno Smith get absolutely rocked last week. Geno's questionable this week. Kenneth Walker is doubtful, which means you're putting the hands in Charbonnet. You're putting the ball in Charbonnet's hands every time you're running the ball. And, if Geno doesn't play, then you're putting the ball in Drew Lock's hands against the best defense in the NFL. So, I mean, obviously, like, I caught this at about 6.5 on Monday. I I mean, is there any reason you see why this spread should be this low for a game where it's one of the best teams in the NFC versus an injured team with a day and a half to rest?
Yeah, no, this is it's pretty brutal. And you got to think that the injury, the in-game injury risk for Geno Smith is there still. If he's got a bruise on his elbow, all it takes is one hard hit, which the 49ers are, most likely going to put on him. Yeah, I mean, the line's still only at -7. And you got to think that, an hour before 90 minutes before game time, when they come out these injury reports, if Geno Smith is out, this line's going to jump quick. So good on you for getting it at under 6.5. I think that's really good because I do think the 49ers, I think they handle this game really well. The only thing that would make me a little hesitant is the fact that it's in Seattle. And I don't know what it is about the games being in Seattle, but they're like a completely different team. They play way better at home. It's just tough to play. And the fact that it's a divisional rivalry game is kind of another thing. But I don't think I let that scare me all the way off. I think a touchdown is easily attainable for the team, especially the way they've been playing since they came back from a bye.
Yeah, and even like I'm checking it out on our handy dandy app Action and Picket. For those of you watching, go check those out. You can follow us there. We post our full cards there every single day. They also have a feature on there. You can see where the money on these games are going. 82%, 82.5, 83% of the money and the bets are both on the Niners to cover the spread. And now when you usually see that, you usually see the lines start to jump. And we have not seen that. And that's something I'm really interested in seeing where, that's coming from. Let me see if I can find on one of these what we're talking about, like see a line movement graph. But for the fact that you're a day away, this line opened up on Sunday at 6 or about 5.5, 6. You have just about every single player. Just about since 2:14 today, this line started at 7 and it has not moved. I don't see any reason why this line hasn't moved. It makes no sense. The only time when we see stuff like this where the line doesn't move or it moves in the opposite direction of what you think and like all the money's on one spread, it usually means that they see something coming. Like they know like a Brock Purdy meltdown is coming, or like Debo's actually not going to play last minute, something like that. But I don't understand. Maybe it's because, it's a rivalry game on Thanksgiving on a Thursday night. And those have been some of and the Thursday night games have been some of the most unpredictable games that we've had. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense to see a team who just came off a bye week and won back-to-back games the way they did, with 34-3 over a playoff contending team. Even if the score didn't show it, a 27-14 game that was fairly dominant, where the Seahawks struggled against the Commanders team. They got blown out by Baltimore, and then they lost to the Rams. Like I just can't see anything that makes you think like, let me put money on them to cover the spread.
Well, I mean, and then to further your point here, so like I kind of talked about, the 49ers are, like you said, at least on my app, they're 62% favored to cover the spread. The Cowboys started last night when I wrote my article late last night, about 9:00 at night. They were -11 last night. Right now, they're only getting 60% of the bets to cover the spread, and the spread's jumped to 13.5. So, I mean, just kind of let that sink in a little bit. Like, what they're like, I understand you, and I understand it's in Seattle, and Seattle's a tough place to play. But with all that, you're not going to have your best running back. You're putting your ball or the ball in the hands of a rookie, and then guys who haven't been relevant in the league for the last few years. Your quarterback's banged up, and yeah, the line hasn't gone anywhere. It just makes you think that there's something out there that they know that we don't.
Yeah, it's definitely suspicious. I mean, is it making me worry about this? No. But because I think even if this team is at full health, the way the Seahawks have played, San Francisco will win. Just solely on the fact of the one point I've preached to y'all pretty much every week for the last 2 months, and that Seattle cannot perform in the second half. They've had one game since their comeback win in Detroit in week 3 that they've scored more than 10 points in the second half, and that was against the Commanders, the worst defense in the NFL. And they still only scored 20 against the worst defense. And then they against a Rams defense, which other than Aaron Donald has no one, they put up 3 points in the second half. So it's just I think this is one of those games they're trying to scare people away from betting, or they're trying to trap them into betting the opposite side because of the reverse regression trend. But I mean, even if we see them say like, hey, Ayuk and Samuel aren't playing, Purdy's not playing, you still have Christian McCaffrey. And they can just throw 50 screen passes to McCaffrey and still win this game easily. I mean, their whole offense is 3-yard screen passes or deep bombs. And you could almost put any quarterback into that system right now against that Seahawks defense and should be able to win by at least a score or two. So, I mean, I'm locking that one in, and we'll go over that one more later. But for the daily fantasy side of it, what are your lineups this week? What are you looking at? What's your money making lineups you got for us this week?
So, and that's where I'm kind of I'm kind of rolling through. Oh God, that's not what I wanted. There we go. All righty here. Sweet. All right. So, like I kind of talked about. Oh, that's not the right one. Oh. Sorry, now I got to go back to the lobby. I thought I had it all pulled up. I was all ready to go. So what I do think that oh God, that's going to take a hot minute now. Oh, geez. Here we go. So I was thinking, and I probably what everybody else is going to be thinking here is that, Dak Prescott's going to be the highest owned quarterback on this slate. And it's going to be Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, stack is what everybody's kind of going to be going with. And then you can get another cheap stack piece with Jake Ferguson in there as well. Oh my goodness.
So while it's loading, what's your thought with the stack? If like I've been saying it since week 3, Ayuk and Purdy is a match made in heaven. Is that something you look at just because of the price of a Dak Prescott, or are you like the same worry boat that we were talking about earlier, where if you play Prescott or you play Purdy and they blow him out, they're just going to run the ball with Elijah Mitchell all game?
Well, and that's exactly it, and that's where you kind of think a great game script. And now, so what I've been doing lately. So normally, like especially when I've been starting, when I started my season, I was kind of just doing one lineup, and I was entering that one lineup in a bunch of different things. Well, last week I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit different approach, and I'm going to enter 20 lineups, and I'm going to pick specific quarterbacks that I like, and I'm going to put those quarterbacks in, and I'm going to build around those games. So like last week, I was on 6 different quarterbacks. I was on Stroud. I was on Lawrence. I was on Murray. I was on Purdy. And I had one up in my article. I wrote it up. I had a Trevor Lawrence up that if I flip-flop Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, I placed 4th in my contest. I win $10,000. So doing kind of what I'm trying to do now is just a little bit different. So like tomorrow, I'm going to have a contest. I'm going to probably enter the $3 20 max entry contest. That's not the one I have pulled up, but that one pays out like $75,000 to first, but it lets me build 20 different unique lineups pretty cheaply. It's $60 to max it out, but I can build around the quarterbacks that I'm going to want to build around, and who I'm going to want to build around are Prescott, Purdy, Howell, and Jordan Love. I don't think I'm going to get to Goff just because like the running game thing worries me, and Geno Smith with the Q tag I don't like. So if you were talking about price, that I absolutely think about that. Purdy to Ayuk is way cheaper to get to. So if you were to punch in, Prescott and then CeeDee Lamb, you look at your remaining salary and you're talking $5,000. So then if you want to turn around and get, if you're like, okay, hey, I want David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you look at tight ends and you're like, okay, I can pay down for tight ends with Ferguson. Then you go over to your defense and you're like, okay, I'm going to take the 49ers because I don't want to pay all the way up. I mean, you can $4,600 to kind of finish out your salary here, or you finish out your lineup. And there are some punt options, like we kind of talked about with a Jaden Reed, who kind of gives you a little bit more room to work with. But then you're talking that you're going to have to either pay up for one more guy in the flex, and if you're like, oh, I want to pay for Christian McCaffrey, you can't do that. So then you're really kind of having to pick and choose who you want to get. And that's where, that's why I can build a lineup like this with the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Jake Ferguson to start out. But I'm going to have to, I'm going to either have to pay down for a defense or pay down for one of my running backs. So, yeah, I mean, if we were like, okay, hey, we're going to start this lineup with Purdy and Ayuk, you're talking, now we've got $5,200 to spend with. So then you can throw in a few guys. You can say, okay, I want a David Montgomery in this lineup. I'm going to pair him with George Kittle because he's had really good chemistry with George Kittle. All right, now I'm going to pay all the way up for the Cowboys defense. So now instead of having, $4,800, you got $5,200 to work with, which gives you, okay, Jaden Reed, he's my pay down guy. And he's kind of where I keep finding myself going to. So now I got $5,500 to kind of play with. And if I'm like, okay, you know what? Hey, I'm gonna play a little bit with, hey, maybe Brock Purdy's got to throw a lot because Seattle, maybe they get a couple turnovers, and Charbonnet's, maybe getting some goal line touches. I mean, that's what I like doing now, and that's kind of where I've really gotten into is building lineup based on game script. And going where, okay, I'm going to build a Goff lineup. If I want to throw a Goff lineup in there, okay, I'm going to put Goff in there with Amon-Ra St. Brown and, Jameson Williams, or Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. And, then I'm going to say, okay, if Goff is the highest scoring quarterback on the slate, then that means, Dak, Purdy, Jordan Love aren't. So if they aren't the highest scoring quarterback on the slate, what are they doing wrong? Or what's going on in that game that is making Goff outscore them? Is Tony Pollard having a huge game? Is Christian McCaffrey having a huge game where he's not getting dumped off passes? So that's kind of been my thought process on the whole thing, is just, you can do one lineup and you can go based off projections, which has worked for me this year. But I'm kind of trying to take a stab at some bigger contests and some bigger money.
So, and no, I like that. I think there's a matchup I've been kind of looking at possibly doing was just biting the bullet and paying up for the tight end position and doing Kittle. And just trying to take that approach, knowing like that he's just been hot lately, and buying down on just doing that, biting the bullet, him and Purdy, and who was it I was looking at? Doing like Jaden Reed, like we talked about, or I mean, do you even see like like something with Michael Gallup might be good because we saw last week he got a lot more touches and he seemed to be getting more involved. And granted, it might have just been because it was Carolina and they wanted to give CD kind of a rest week, but that's they know the ball's going to CD Lamb. They're going to be guarding him as best as possible. I mean, you see maybe even like Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, like McLaurin, any of those guys possibly having some kind of big game this week.
Oh, 100%. Somebody that I do like all the way down for as well is Jameson Williams. Him and Josh Reynolds are kind of splitting, but Jameson's taken over the spot just a little bit. Let me see. I can pull up. I got a tool on here that lets me pull up how often they're on the field. I usually have it up, and I don't. And now it's showing up. Maybe. But yeah. So I mean, you can go based off that too. So like if Jameson Williams out there just as much as Josh Reynolds, and he's taking up just as many target shares. So yeah. So Josh Reynolds is on the field more often than Jameson Williams, and he's getting more. He's getting more targets. But Jameson Williams just seems to be doing a little bit more with his. Last week he caught the touchdown. Josh Reynolds did. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been all Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. But yeah, I mean, you look at some of those things and like a Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup's, if you something crazy, here's a good one for you. Jalen Tolbert was on the field, and granted, it was a blowout, but he's on the field for 61% of the snaps last week. And he's been trending pretty close to where Brandon Cooks has been. But like you said, Michael Gallup has seen the field more times this year than Brandon Cooks. But when Brandon Cooks is out there, they're trying to get Brandon Cooks the ball. Now, Brandon Cooks is only $4,500. So, what if, you could go like, hey, you know what? I think Dak Prescott's going to be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. He's going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm going to take a chance and say that CD Lamb's not getting those. I'm going to say that Brandon Cooks is going to catch one, and Jake Ferguson's going to catch 2, because Jake Ferguson is the highest targeted tight end in the NFL in the red zone. I mean, that's how you can kind of get different. And that, I'll probably have a lineup like that, because like I said, the Dak Prescott to CD Lamb thing is going to be so high owned that everybody's going to have that. Am I going to have that a lot too? Absolutely. But what if on the off chance, what if CD, and I hate to say it, but what if CD Lamb, what if they do give him another rest week? What if you go ahead so much and Dak has thrown, so many touchdowns and now it's like, okay, it's time to rest. And CD Lamb only does a little bit. And it's just, there's so many different aspects that can go in there. There's so many different things that can happen. And it's one of those things to where it's so easy to start getting carried away. Like last week when I was setting my 20 lineups, like the first 10 took me forever because like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you know what? This could happen in this game too. Or you know what? This could happen in this game too. And so you start going down a rabbit hole. So sometimes you just have to look at, what finding out and trying to figure out what everybody else is doing and then being just a little bit different without being too crazy.
No, and see, I think so I'm actually putting one together right now just off something I really liked. Now that you had mentioned that, once I find Ferguson somewhere in here. But so I had a lineup I really liked that I've kind of put in. So I'm gonna read this off to you. So this is my lineup. So I did the one that you had mentioned. I put Ferguson. I actually have, God, I can never do this website right. So I had 2 that I love. So my 2 this week is I took one of Purdy as my QB, and I put him with Gallup for my running backs, as well as Sorry, my screen just went crazy. We got Purdy, Gibbs, and Montgomery. I'm doing with them with the split back. I have Debo, Jaden Reed, Gallup, and Kittle as my tight end, and my flex is Ayuk, and I took the 49ers defense. So I went 49ers heavy just because I think I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards in case that game stays within 14, or just because it's a rivalry game on Thanksgiving. And these guys don't, even though they're on like 3 days rest and they just had to come all the way for they had to play a game on Sunday. This is a Thanksgiving game. Most of them don't get to play this. They want to play it, regardless of how much they're beating up a team. So I think that is one of my lineups. And my other one is I did the same thing. I put Purdy as my quarterback. I kept Kittle, Ayuk, Debo. But then what I did was instead of Gallup, I put Ferguson. So you have Kittle and Ferguson, which I think they're both going to have a pretty solid game. So what are your thoughts on that one right there?
Yeah, I think honestly, like to win one of these slates, you have to be a little bit different, and that's where having the same running back from the same, two running backs from the same team, you see it a lot in smaller slates. Same thing with, like you said, double tight end. Nobody plays double tight end, and it wins more often than it doesn't. Just a couple weeks ago, I think the person who took down the millionaire that week, that all the tight ends it seemed like every time you opened an app, it was a tight end was scoring a touchdown. Or you go to the red zone channel and George scores, and they were just throwing stuff out there, and it was all tight ends. I actually really like that lineup. So like I was just kind of putting one together while you were talking through it, and I was like, I've got Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jaden Reed, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Jake Ferguson, Niners defense, and then I kind of punted one with like Jameson Williams. So I mean, I fit all the studs in there. I've got Ayuk, I've got McCaffrey, I've got Kittle, and that's just kind of going heavy. Like, oh, you know what? I think San Francisco is really going to roll away with this game. And now, could you could get rid of like Ayuk and say that McCaffrey and Kittle are going to have the big game, and you could pay up for somebody else, or you could pay down a defense, and you could say, you know what? I kind of like the Packers against Detroit. I think Goff's going to have an off game, and that leaves you. It doesn't let you get where you want to be. You could pay all the way down for Washington. Nope, that doesn't let you do it either. Yeah, I thought maybe it would. I thought I could get to like Amon-Ra St. Brown, or I could get to CeeDee Lamb. I do really like CeeDee Lamb, and as much as like I said, you want to be a little bit different, but not crazy. So, I think you stick. Like I said, I'm going to stick with 4 quarterbacks. I don't think I'm going to have any Jared Goff lineups. I don't think I'm going to have any Geno Smith lineups. I might throw 1 or 2. I might throw a one-off on each of those guys, just in case. Actually, you know what? I don't want anything to do with Geno Smith, so I might throw 1 Goff lineup in there. But I'm going to do 20 lineups. I'm going to do probably 19 of them with Prescott, Howell, Purdy, or Love, and then I might have just 1 Jared Goff lineup where it's just him and Amon-Ra and Laporta, or him and Amon-Ra, and just a combination of some guys who if he just so happens to go off, I don't want to miss out. I just don't think Geno Smith has that in him. He hasn't had that in him all year, except for the one game against the Lions. And like I said, I really do like I like Jordan Love at $5,500 this week. I mean, he saves you $1,000 from Dak Prescott, and you can really do a lot. I mean, you could pay for him and Jaden Reed, and then really stack up some studs. You could get the opposite side of the game. You could go with Amon-Ra. You could go with which I'll throw one together here real quick. So if you went with Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, okay, I want CeeDee Lamb. Could I get, I want some of the other pieces of that game. I want Jahmyr Gibbs. You could say I want tight end. Let's get Jake Ferguson in there. Defense. Go with the 49ers defense. I mean, that leaves you almost $6,000 to play with there. So, I mean, you could put Christian McCaffrey. You could kind of do a secondary stack with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers defense. Kind of play to the fact that, you know what, hey, maybe the Green Bay and Detroit game is going to be the highest one on the slate. You could look down a little bit and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to stack Jordan Love. If Jordan Love's getting done and he's making this a close game, you know, him, Jaden Reed, and Romeo Doubs, and that leaves you $36 in the flex. And you have to punt somebody, but you could go with like a Josh Reynolds. You could go with Jameson Williams. So yeah, there's so many options, and that's why like sitting down at the computer and kind of just going through things it's really fun to do. It just sucks because like I'll get lost in it and I'll be doing lineups for, you know, what I think is 20 minutes and spend an hour and 20 minutes. And then I get yelled at. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, so I actually just made another one we're talking about. I switched out Debo and I put McCaffrey in instead of Jahmyr Gibbs, and I stuck with Monty. And then I switched in Curtis Samuel in the spot of Debo. So that way I have a lineup of Purdy, Montgomery, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Jaden Reed, Curtis Samuel, Kittle, Ferguson, and the Niners defense. So yeah, I think that one's kind of the only one I'm worried about there is Curtis Samuel, because I just feel like Howell just throws it. He doesn't have a favorite target. And with him getting hurt last week, I'm kind of worried a little bit, but it was, you know, I didn't want to do Njigba. I didn't want to do another one with Gallup. And I just, between Josh Reynolds and Williams, I don't know who I trust more in that. I think the only other one I might look at doing is doing like Juwan Jennings. Maybe might be a good one. I don't know how you feel about towards that one.
Yeah, I mean, so let's scroll down here and let's look at some time on the field. Juwan Jennings does see the field. 29% of the snaps last week and 43% over the course of the year. But it was a game where they were wrecking. So
and Debo's been out, so.
And yeah, so Debo was on the for 50% of the snaps, Brandon Ayuk for 67. And yeah, McCaffrey almost a 42% target share last week. So I mean, honestly, like Christian McCaffrey is kind of like somebody you want to target too. That's nuts. That's what Purdy does. He just dumps off, man.
Well, you can't blame him. It works.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's been fantastic. They've been getting wins. I think, to me, on a short slate like this too, don't think too much about defense. With the outlier of, you know, the 49ers defense is expensive, and they should be able to handle Seattle no problem. They just don't score. Like if you look at like some of their scores, they're not a big scoring defense. 9 points last game.
I'm looking at a stat for Juwan Jennings in the games without Debo this season. He was in for 33% or 33 of the plays, 59% of the passing plays, and his target share was about 15%. With Debo in, that number changes. It actually goes, his target share goes down to about 7%, but his reception to target rate and his average yards per play goes up to from a 9.5 to an 11.6. And he goes up to about 48% reception to target rate. Granted, it's about 1.5 to 2.5, but still, I mean, that's kind of a good number to look like. If this gets to a blowout, they're obviously going to keep resting Debo, because I think they're just kind of watching him until it gets to playoff time.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right, because I mean, right now Debo's. I mean, he's the gadget guy, and he was so good a couple of years ago. That's because I don't think they were using Ayuk the way they needed to. He was doing it all. I mean, they didn't have a running game. They had to use him in every aspect. And now that they've got a bless you. Now that they've got a running game, And now that they've got, a pretty bona fide number one wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk, like Deebo Samuel's kind of just there. I mean, is he still the same kind of player? Is he still that gadget guy? Is he still the guy who can get it done and really, really throw a team off? Absolutely. But like you said, I mean, they're kind of letting him get healthy, and then when hey, come playoff time when it's ready to to give him some more touches and gives him some more looks, I think it'll come, and they'll have a game where they're shutting Purdy down, and then coming out in the second half, they're just the ball into Deebo Samuel's hands and let the guy cook.
So, and to the Josh Reynolds point, the one with him and Jamison Williams, in the games that Jamison Williams has been in, his target share has went down about 3%, like 3 to 4%. So he was getting about 5 to 6 targets a game. And over the last 3, he only had one game with more than 2. Vegas, he only had 1 target. He had 4 against the Chargers. And he only had 2 last week. So I think that's the hard thing with this Lions team is you just really don't know, like, who they're like. Yeah. Dan Campbell is just you fought, and I had coaches like this when I was in college. So it's so annoying to deal with because you're just always like, he's like, this guy had a really good practice, so we're gonna throw it to him 20 times, or this guy was late 5 minutes, so we're just not gonna play him at all. Like you just don't know.
Yeah, it's really been just the Amon-Ra and Gibbs show in the passing game, because Detroit's just not. They're just not. I mean, they don't pass anybody else. I mean, like you said, between Reynolds, Williams, and Khalif Raymond, none of them have gotten over 4 targets in the past 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, the last time Williams or Reynolds got over 4 was Carolina when they were up like 42-20 when they started getting touches.
And the last time Jameson Williams got over 5 was when they threw the ball to him 6 times and he didn't catch the ball 1 time. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, they trust Amon-Ra, they trust Gibbs. I don't know. It'll be fun to build. I'll be looking at a bunch of them tonight. I'll probably get my contest entered tonight, and then I'll start writing. I like to do it old school. I take a notebook and a pencil and a piece of paper, and I jot down what I've got. That way I have it kind of all in front of me, so I don't have to keep clicking back and forth on screens. I'll build a lineup, I'll write it out, and then the next lineup, I'll try to build it pretty much the same with a couple tweaks, and hopefully one of these times I get it right. But as of right now, I've kind of
I think
it's a new system, and like I said, it's fun because it just gives you I've had it where weeks, I had a lineup where I've entered $150 worth of lineups. I made just one lineup, and it was shot after I can't remember who went down with an injury, but somebody went down with an injury, and it's like, well, that's my day. Guess I'm done watching football. So this kind of gives me a little bit of hope. If somebody does go down with an injury or somebody's not having a great day, at least I don't have a ton of them. So,
right, I get you. Yeah, that's how I always feel like with daily fantasy is like I'll look at my lineup and it struggles, and then I always look at the dude who's first place, and I just think like, what genius brain thought of putting this guy in? Like I used to do it a lot for NBA. Like I would put my lineup together and think it was solid, and then the guy who picked up like the 3rd string point guard because he was going to get 1.2 more minutes per game finishes first, and I'm just like, what made you think to start like Ish Smith over LaMelo this week, like something like that, like that you just never ever think of. You see these guys go crazy with.
Well, that was like, I mean, even last night I did the same thing with NBA. I hate NBA this year. I suck.
That's why you got to follow Gotham Gambling. Make sure you guys follow us over on Twitter. We're hitting like everything. We've had a rough month this month too, so I think it's just November, man. Like we've just been getting our ass kicked.
Yeah, I've been in the same. I just feel like I haven't had a deposit on DraftKings in over a year and a half, and I had to put some more money on DraftKings the other day.
Speaking it's those first field goal bets. That's what it is.
Oh God, I've been doing first basket bet. Yeah, the first basket bets have been terrible.
I see those pop up in the social, and I'm like, oh God, Jordan, I really hope you hit one of these.
So it is so funny because speaking of deposits, um, it, did they do ESPN Bet in New York or have they not allowed that yet?
No, so New York is only allowed to do 8 betting apps. Until they have to like go through a commission, and it's gonna take like, because I was looking at it, I was trying to see like how to do it because I wanted a new book to like try to start over with, and it was just telling me like, yeah, you have like they would take like over 2 years of petitioning just to get on the voting list.
Jesus.
Because that's what Fanatics did, was instead of going in on their own, they just bought PointsBet so they could use their system in New York.
I like that. But yeah, speaking of that, so for all my Midwestern friends and people who don't live in New York, ESPN Bet, if you download the app, deposit, one, they match your deposit up to $1,000. There's a lot of playback for it. I've made a couple bets and I've only gotten $1 back so far, so it probably takes a while to do that. But they're offering up 4 free $50 bets after you make your first bet. And then after you make your first bet with your $50 free bet, they give you an additional $50 or free $50 bet. So $250 in free bets just for signing up and depositing. And I don't think the deposit has to be anything crazy. I don't think there might be a $5 or $10 minimum, but all I did was bet $5 the other night on a Jalen Brunson first basket, which he did hit. Thank you very much. And I got 4 $50 free bets. So yeah, if you haven't downloaded that, it's new. It's a little different, but that's kind of where I've been trending all my betting on there, and then using my DraftKings balance to play DFS. So
that's why I haven't seen you in the chat lately. I thought you just gave it a break for a week. I didn't even realize you were doing that.
I mean, I kind of did. I kind of stopped betting just altogether, and then
I was just seeing DJs like 10-cent to $1 bets.
Him and Doug.
But speaking of bet, before we go, because we're running in at the end of our time here, we did come up with a 4-leg parlay for you guys, to set you guys up for the just for Thanksgiving. So after you go out, like give you an extra $50. If you bet $10 on this bet, you'll get $50 back. Gets you an extra $50 to go out on Black Friday. And I'm gonna put something together for Black Friday. I'm sure, Jordan, if you want to get along in with that as well, you can send me over some stuff. We'll put it together. But we'll get you guys a parlay to set you guys up for Black Friday.
And Boyle.
Yeah. We're gonna rock with him this week. I hope to God he plays good, just so everyone will shut up about Zach Wilson. I'm so tired of hearing about this team living up.
You got Mike White 2.0 coming in.
Oh my God, dude. I just, all I see every day is just miserable fans around here. And like the people will still walk around rocking their Jets gear. And I'll be like, yeah, how you feeling about this team? And they just give me the most like look of death in their eyes that I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, sorry, I'm pulling up the bet real quick just so I can show you all where our mind was with this one. But Jordan, while we're doing this, what's your prediction for all 3 games? Who covers? Who wins? What do you got?
All right, I got 3. If we're going all down the slate, I think the Packers win, and I think the over hits, but I think the Lions win, the over hits, but the Packers cover the spread. Cowboys Commanders, I like the over in that game. I think the Commanders cover the spread in that game, and then last game, I like the 49ers to cover the spread, and I like the under of the 44.5.
I like that. I think that Packer one, I feel like that's going to be one of those things where we just it's such a good game. Sorry, Jesus Christ. Hawks just put up 45 in the first again. Trae Young is 6 threes already.
Dude, that game last night was nuts.
Oh my god, dude! I didn't bet at all yesterday, and that was the first thing I thought was just like, what a sick degenerate I would be to say I'm not betting and then take the over in that game just because it was so high. I
I
wish I
mean,
did.
God, I wonder if you could have gotten it to like a 300-point total like
Oh, you could
that.
have
I
got it like
can't.
as an alternate with ease up there.
That
It would
is
have been
so.
like plus it would have been like plus 1,000 maybe, but like damn.
Oh man,
What
that
a
would have been.
fun game to watch. Like
Oh, it was great.
but so I do have it up now. So this is going to be our 4-leg parlay for the Thursday night or the Thursday Thanksgiving football slate. So the first one we got is going to be the Niners to cover the spread. Like I said, I'm high on this, and if you look, they have covered a -7 spread in 60% of their games this year. They had one game that finished exactly at 7 versus the Rams, but you can even see here, while the spreads have been hard to cover for them, mainly because their spreads have been crazy high. They've, other than the 3-game stretch where they struggled against Cleveland, Minnesota, and Cincy, they have covered the spread or pushed it every single time versus a Seahawks team who, although they've covered, if you've noticed a lot of these games, these were games that the games that they have covered this in, they had big leads going into the half and teams made comeback victories on them. Or they had to make comeback victories on teams. So I wouldn't, it's not like they've dominated games they were favored in. They actually have only they've actually covered the spread at only one game this year that they were an underdog in. They got beat by 34 when they were a 6-point underdog. They got beat by 4 when they were a 3-point underdog, and they covered against the Lions in that collapse in week 2. So that's our leg 1. Leg 2 is going to be Christian McCaffrey to get 100 rushing receiving yards. As you can see here, in 7 of the 10 games he's played, it's hit. Minnesota, it almost hit. It missed by 4 yards. Again, every bad stat for any of these players has come in this 3-week stretch. Every other game they have cooked. And you can even see, other than those 3 games, he's in for just about every single play. He's getting about 18 rushing attempts a game. He's getting about 60% of the rushes, and he's getting about 5.5 targets, and he's getting about 5.5 targets a game. And this other one I noticed too, he's broken just about a tackle a game. And breaking at least one tackle a game is automatically going to give you an extra 5 yards in the NFL. So I love that stat right there for it. And we're on to your plays, Jordan. We got over here. We have it at 78.5, but my book, my research app Outlier, shout out to them. Make sure you guys use Outlier for all your research. It's honestly one of the best apps I've ever used. They're doing a free month trial right now. I'll put the link up in my bio on Twitter. But we have CD Lamb to get 80 receiving yards. Jordan, what was your kind of thought process on this one?
Honestly, it's just the fact that he kind of had a down, or maybe really had a down week last week. But I think they get back on track. They're back at home, and just the Commanders just being literally the worst passing defense in the league. So I just, like I said, I kind of thought they'd get the ball to Tony Pollard a little bit more last week, and they did to an extent. But they've just been letting Dak cook, and when he cooks, it's CeeDee Lamb who's the beneficiary. So if you look at that early stretch there, it was kind of like, they really didn't know. It just seemed like they weren't really sure on which way they were going or route they were on. And then now that Mike McCarthy's kind of taken over the play call a little bit, and been doing a little bit more. Well, I'm trying to think now because Mike McCarthy's been calling plays all year. God, there was some, I can't remember now. Now it's going to bug me. But there's something where they kind of changed something up a little bit with the play calling, and I don't know if they gave it to somebody. I can't remember. But I just like CeeDee Lamb. I like CeeDee Lamb. I like Dak to get the ball to him.
And just something I've noticed, and I may be wrong with this because, I was like in middle school when like this was really like at starting to hit its peak. Doesn't it give off like this like Prescott Lamb, like the way they're working them in the offense? Doesn't this just give off like the like with McCarthy, especially like how he would run Rodgers and Adams in Green Bay, where it's just let's get him the ball, and if we can't if we get him cooking, it's over. So let's just feed him the ball until he's hot, or until we force them to make us throw it to someone else.
Right, and I think that's exactly it. I mean, I think he's realizing that these guys have the connection, and you know, and CeeDee Lamb is a great talent. He's really come on the last couple of years, and you know, I think you're exactly right. You know, I think they're just like, you know what, we're going to run this guy till the wheels fall off.
Yep, and we got our last play of the parlay right here. You want to go over this one for us again? Because you know, I was interested to see what you like with this one, because I like it too, but you know, I saw a lot of red here, and that kind of made me a little nervous about it. So I just want to know your thought process on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with the fact that the Commanders are just that bad against the pass. And like I said, lately the Cowboys have just been showing out. It's Thanksgiving, it's at home. I do think that, like I said, I think the game stays close, and I like the over. So I really, really, really think that I think that they just let Prescott cook. I mean, I think let him ball, and that's kind of where they're tied in together. You know, I think Prescott has a good game, and if he's having a good game, Lamb's having a good game. So
yeah, see, I like, and that's why I like. That's why I mentioned. I brought it down to this stat right here. They rank 30th out of 32 teams in passing defense. So if you guys don't like 275, that's a little bit too high. I know I have a lot of bettors that follow my best that they like more of the lower builders versus higher parlays. They give up 258 yards a game in passing, so 250 should be a almost guaranteed lock. I can actually check that odd right now. That actually is at 260, so that's not even bad. That's actually really good odd. I think if it wasn't for the fact that we were going for something big, high stakes here, that'd probably be more in my area, but I think if he gets 250, I don't see any reason why he doesn't get 275.
yeah, I was on that same boat. Like when I first put it together, right before I sent it to you, I had it at 250 and I had Lamb at 75 plus. So I did do the alternate, and then I was like, you know what? Let's go with the overs on both these guys. And that, like I said, that was kind of just a gut feeling. But yeah, like you said, playing the low odds, I think 250 and 75 are locks. And it probably doesn't change a whole lot. You know, it just, you know, it's all about your risk adversity. So
I'm actually going to look up his projections right now in my system. So what we got this week. So it's projecting him around more closer to 255. But also, so the way with the system I use, the way it works is they calculate the win probability to affect passing yards of quarterbacks. Because if the higher the win probability in the system usually means they're projecting more of a blowout. And when that happens, I've seen a lot of trends of, well, it hasn't been a real trend, but a trend in the system shows that the quarterbacks are supposed to have lower passing yards, which you would typically think if it's a blowout win, you're going to see a lot less quarterback action. But I just think I think a lot of these systems and these simulations and projections don't take into account divisional matchups, potential playoff matchups, like, you know, games where it's like, hey, if we don't win this week, then we have to win next week. Like, or like, hey, like, you know, with a team like this, like, hey, the Eagles who do the Eagles play this week? Because I think that's a big factor in this too.
the Bills.
So like, hey, you know, Eagles might have a tough game and they could potentially lose this game. I don't think they will. I'm just saying, but like the Cowboys need a big win here because that point differential could come in a tiebreaker. So I think that's stuff that like number systems don't really project and work well with. But yeah, I love that 275. When we put all that together, this morning I got it at plus 400 odds, which means $10 settles you out for 50. So if you guys tail that, that is a nice $10 to $50 bet to get you guys set up for some Black Friday. we're gonna try to have one together for the 3 o'clock game, so that way you guys have that ready to go for tomorrow. But that is it. We're getting a little close in our time, and I'm not gonna get yelled at by DJ tonight. Not before Thanksgiving.
And just real quick,
not after the Chiefs game.
Right. So real quick, you talk about Prescott. So if you switch that and go a little bit lower and take Prescott at 250 plus and CeeDee Lamb at 80 plus for alternate yardage, it only takes that 4-pick parlay to a plus 321 on DraftKings. So you add your 2 picks, and then if you want to go just a little bit lower, plus 321. I mean, you're not talking about much difference. So $10 would get you 42. So
so $8 difference. So
yeah, so not that bad if but like I said, I like it. Being a Cowboys fan, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, I think I'm going the other way. I'm risking it all. I want the $50 for Black Friday.
There we go. Yeah, you need to make up for those first field goal bets. But that's it. That will be it for us, ladies and gentlemen. I've had fun this last hour and a half getting you guys prepared for tomorrow's games. Once again, make sure you guys check out Jordan over at J Fantasy Sports on Twitter. Make sure you check us out with the Golden Ticket Show at Gotham Gambling on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're posting plays every single day. We posted our full card today. Currently, we are 2-0 already. We swept our college basketball plays, and we're sweating Denver right now. We have the -4. But currently we're projected to go 6-1 today. It'll be our third winning day in the last 5. We had, given the fact that we had one losing day and I took yesterday off. So make sure you guys check us out there. I think Jordan can be a testament to that. The money, the numbers we've been putting up. So we're just going to give you guys the best plays possible we can. Make sure you guys check out Jordan's show on Friday with Daily Deep Dive. Him and Brian have been putting out some great stuff. Won me a lot of money the last couple weeks in daily fantasy. You got a little preview for us, what you guys are kind of looking at for this week?
Honestly, I really haven't looked. I've been kind of, like I said, Thanksgiving's probably my favorite slate. And then with the Black Friday game, I really haven't taken a look too deep. You do have the Texans and Jags is probably when it pops off. And then the Eagles Bills is probably the other game that I'll probably be targeting a lot. But it's a pretty split slate. There's 6 games in the morning, 4 games at night. 6 in the morning, 5 at night. So there's 6 12 o'clock games and then 5 3 o'clock games. So, but yeah, those 2 games are really the only ones that are kind of popping off. But I don't really have anybody that I haven't looked at pricing or anything yet. So, and I actually put the article together here in the next couple of days.
So. All right. So that will be it for us, guys. Once again, make sure you guys check us out on Substack, on Twitter. Make sure you check out Jordan's show every Friday. Thank you guys for watching. Hope everyone has a great and happy Thanksgiving. And let's go make you guys some money.
See ya.